Ёб твою мать. Бля, чел, мне походу фолловеров накрутили, ну ёбаный в рот. Чел, открути обратно, мне нахуй этот мертвый груз не нужен. У меня сейчас, блядь, ну нахуя вы это делаете, долбоёбы? Мне нахуй.
В PlayStation будет встроенная капсула с коронавирусом. Каждый месяц нужно платить определенное количество денег, чтобы она не разбилась.
Блять, у меня и чат весь сломался. Полите. У меня все зависло. Алло? Я вообще в эфире, нет? Ахатами, спасибо за 50 рублей. Мой чат, походу, заразили только что кабабабибусом. Окей, мы в эфире. 44 тысячи. Но он мне, короче, 500 фолловеров где-то накрутил. Списывай обратно, долбоёб, мне они нахуй не нужны. А зачем сабмод включить? Просто фолловер мод на этот. На 10 минут фолловинга. Или типа того. А я не могу, кстати, его сам включить. У меня вообще вот эта страница повисла полностью. И он продолжает мне крутить. Он мне еще 4... А, нет, стоп. Он мне назло, что ли, фолловеров крутит или что? У меня вообще все повисло. Ёбаный пиздец. Чел, мне оно нахуй не надо, иди в пизду. Это не реверсивная психология. Окей. Ну, видимо, я буду смотреть презентацию без чата. Зато у меня есть вот такой вот чат. Погнали. Похуй. Наконец-то публично 5. Ой, я видел, Хупер слетает. Вот этот чат у меня вообще не грузится. Я вижу только смайлики летающие. Чат, вы плачете? Не плачете. Я вас вижу, чат. Так, ну я, короче, фолловеров отключу тогда пока что. Чтобы оно не спамило. Follow. Еба.
Потрачу все деньги, накопленные с обедов, потому что все равно из-за самоизоляции не смогу потратить их на еду. Как вот тебя отблагодарить можно за все, что ты делаешь.
Спасибо огромное, сосуска, за 500 рубасов. Спасибо большое. Ща, чат, погодите. Пиздец какой-то происходит. Как, блять, не вовремя, а? 53 тысячи фолловеров. Ты, сука, издеваешься, что ли? Саб офф. Чел, ты просишь открутить фолловеров и в то же время обсираешь меня, что ты хочешь после этого. Чел, ты понимаешь, что ты кусок говна? Отсоси мой хуй, пошел нахуй отсюда, ебанько. Мне до пизды, да накрути ты мне хоть 100 косарей этих фолловеров. Мне чё с этого будет, долбоёб? Меня никто за это не забанит. Потому что это не я себе кручу фолловеров, ебанько ты, блядь, тупое. Я просто не понимаю, нахуя таким долбоёбом быть. Месяц сабмода, погнали. Чат, ну я, короче, открываю шампанское. У нас здесь праздник сегодня. Я набрал 53 тысячи фолловеров. Кстати, у нас юбилей. Сразу так перешагнули за полтинник. Может, сегодня даже 100 косарей наберем. Хуй его знает. Может, даже миллион. Хуй его знает. Погнали. Похуй. Празднуем. Пог. Окей, до премьеры 60 секунд. А вы знали, что вы можете писать в чат, если... А, кстати, чел, короче, лайфхак тебе полю. Оплати всем ботам, короче, подписку, и ты сможешь мне спамить, типа, даже в саб-моде, прикинь. Ебать, ты меня затроллишь, тогда я вообще стримить не смогу. Блин, мне так грустно будет. Блин, чел, не делай этого, пожалуйста. Плиз. Русские вперед. Кстати, вы можете в этом чате общаться со мной? Ансабы. Хотя ладно, наверное, это тупо будет. Вы тут всем мешать будете. Второй Бедартес. Сейчас он накрутит сабов через Twitch Prime. Но я просто обращусь тогда в техподдержку. Там, наверное, разберутся с этим. Нет, так нет, ладно. Чё. До премьеры осталось совсем ничего. Я готов. О, погнали. Блин, я так кайфую с вот этого экрана. Я помню, я один раз только в жизни на ютубе проводил премьеру, я так балдел с этого экрана. С вот этих вот анимаций. На 2х скорость поставь. Стоп, серьезно? Это так работает здесь? Бля, погнали. Ебать. Хакермены. А за такой не забанят? Бля, я уж испугался, я думал, меня забанили, короче. А тут нельзя, не, нихуя, он выключает. Это мы, видимо, задержку только прошли. Ну-ка. Он все еще тут? Он все, ушел, походу. Окей. Эх, не накрутили мне сабы. Вот блин. Ну, вот и такие люди бывают, чат.
The talk that we had planned for GDC, but we do have some super exciting news about PS5, and who better to bring that to you than the one and only Mark Cerny. Without further ado, over to you, Mark.
Thank you, Jim. There will be lots of chances later on this year to look at the PlayStation 5 games. Today, I want to talk a bit about our goals for the PlayStation 5 hardware and how they influenced the development of the console. I think you all know I'm a big believer in console generations. Once every 5 or 6 or 7 years, a console arrives with substantially new capabilities. There's a lot of learning by the game developers, hopefully not too overwhelming, and soon there's games that could never have been created before. Now, it used to be that as a console designer, you'd somehow intuit what would be the best set of capabilities for the console, and then build it in complete secrecy.
Короче, он говорит, как очень любит плойки.
Lasted through PlayStation 3, a powerful and groundbreaking console, but also one that caused quite a lot of heartache, as it was initially difficult to develop games for. So, starting with PlayStation 4, we've taken a different approach, roughly centered around 3 principles. The first of these is listening to the developers, which is to say that a lot of what we put into a console derives directly from the needs and aspirations of the game creators. We definitely do have some ideas of our own, but at the core of our philosophy for designing consoles is that game players are here for the fantastic games. Which is to say that game creators matter. Anything we can do to make life easier for the game creators or help them realize their dreams, we will do. About once every 2 years, I take a tour of the industry. I go to the various developers and publishers, sit down, and discuss how they're doing with the current consoles and what they'd like to see in future consoles. This requires weeks on the road, as reaching the bulk of the game creators involves talking to well over 100 people. It's something like 2 dozen publishers and developers. And it is incredibly valuable. By the way, the feature most requested by the developers, that was an SSD. Which we were very happy to put in the hardware, but a lot of problem solving was required. I'll be doing a deep dive on the SSD and surrounding systems later on in this talk.
Они добавили SSD.
It's also key to make a generational leap while keeping the console sufficiently familiar to game developers. I think about this in terms of balancing evolution and revolution. Now, with PlayStation 1, 2, and 3, the target was
только ради того, чтобы посмотреть на дизайн плойки, потому что давайте будем честны. Они типа скажут по-любому что-то вроде: у нас, короче, мощная консоль. И все таки: воу, она мощная. Кайф. Типа, в любом случае, ее производительность будет примерно на уровне, как сейчас такой, типа, ну, самый почти мощный ПК может выдать. Вот у них примерно такая производительность и будет. У них не будет чего-то выше этого, и супер низкого у них тоже чего-то не будет. По сути, здесь все собрались только чтобы дизайн заценить, и все. Вряд ли они здесь какие-то крутые еще новости расскажут или какие-то релизы сделают, типа новых игр. Но не самый мощный ПК. Ну, хотя плойка 4 на момент выхода, она была, ну, такая, нормальная. Комп за $1000, может, за $700. Но типа, такой комп, он вытягивает сейчас все игры на ультрах.
1200 зрителей тоже накрутил? Здравствуйте, Алексеича.
А я не ебу, кстати, может быть. Может, это накрученный зритель, я вообще без понятия.
As the hardware team, to find new dreams, by which I mean something other than CPU performance, GPU performance, and the amount of RAM. The increase in graphics performance over the past 2 decades has been astonishing, but there are other areas in which we
Чат, кто из вас боты?
provide significant value to game creators, and through them, the players. That's why the SSD was very much on our list of directions to explore, regardless of what came out of the conversations with game developers and publishers. The biggest feature in this category is the custom engine for audio. That's today's final topic. The push for vastly improved audio, and in particular 3D audio, isn't something that came out of the developer meetings. It's much more the case that we had a dream of what might be possible 5 years from now, and then worked out a number of steps we could take to set us on that path. So here again are the 3 principles, the first being enabling the desires of developers to drive the hardware design. To me, the SSD really is the key to the next generation. It's a game changer. And it was the #1 ask from developers for PlayStation 5. As in, we know it's probably impossible, but can we put an SSD in it? That was a discussion we were also having internally. It was clear that the presence of a hard drive in every PlayStation 4 was having a positive impact. A lot of things that would simply have been impossible at Blu-ray disc speeds were now possible.
Все, я отключил фолловеров.
At the same time, though, in
Фолловеры больше не существуют.
2016, when we were having these conversations, developers were already banging up against the limits of the hard drive, and a lot of developer time was being spent designing around slow load speeds. I want to focus in on just one number here, which is how long it takes to load a gigabyte of data from a hard drive. The difficulty being that hard drives are neither particularly fast nor flexible. If all your data is in one block, which is frankly not very likely, you can load 50 to 100 megabytes a second, depending on where the data is.
Я, кстати, не очень понял, что они имели в виду, когда про звук говорили.
Which means loading a gigabyte takes 10 seconds. If you compress your game packages, you can fit more data on the Blu-ray disc and also effectively boost your hard drive read speed by the compression ratio. We support zlib decompression on PlayStation 4 that gets you something like 50% more data on the disc and 50% higher effective read speed.
Что там в чате происходит сейчас?
Highly likely that your data is scattered around in various files on the hard drive, as well as sourced from multiple locations within those files. So lots of seeks are needed at 2 to 50-ish milliseconds each. My rule of thumb is that the hard drive is spending 2/3 of its time seeking,
Они
and
изобрели
only
звук.
1/3
Воу.
of its time actually
Nice.
loading data. Putting all of that together, a gigabyte is very roughly 20 seconds to load from a hard drive. Now, a gigabyte is not much data. Games are using 5 or 6 gigabytes of RAM on PlayStation 4, so boot times and load times can get pretty grim. Or to put that differently, as a player, you wait for the game to boot, wait for the game to load, wait for the level to reload every time you die, and you wait for what is euphemistically called fast travel. And all of that leads to the dream. What if we could have not just an SSD, but a blindingly fast SSD? If we could load 5 gigabytes a second from it, what would change? Now, SSDs are completely different from hard drives. They don't have seeks as such. If you have a 5 gigabyte a second SSD,
подожди,
you can
что-то
read
интересное
data from
рассказывает.
1,000 different locations in that second, pretty much at speed. As for time to load a gigabyte, this is next gen we're talking about, so memory is bigger. Instead, we should be asking how long to load 2 gigabytes. And the answer is about 1/4 of a second. I mean, that's amazing. We're talking 2 orders of magnitude,
Нихуя себе.
meaning very roughly 100 times faster. Which means at 5 gigabytes a second for the SSD, the potential is that the game boots in a second. There are no load screens. The game just fades down while loading a half-dozen gigabytes and fades back up again. Same for a
Нихуя
reload.
себе.
You're immediately back in the
Типа игры
action.
пиздец как быстро будут включаться, там загружаться, вот эти вот менюшки всякие, моментально вообще. Ну, якобы, как он говорит.
The player from how long fast travel is taking, like those Spider-Man subway rides, to being so blindingly fast that we might even have to slow that transition down. Pretty cool, right? But for me, this is not the primary reason to change from a hard drive to an SSD.
Он так разговаривает, как будто он серийный убийца, короче, какой-то. Такой чисто анимешный. Он пойдет домой и будет расчленять маленьких девочек, как будто.
I think almost all of us in the room have experienced this, maybe in different ways. Say we're making an adventure game and we have 2 rich environments where we each want enough textures and models to fill memory, which you can do as long as you have a long staircase or elevator ride or a windy corridor where you can ditch the old assets and then take 30 seconds or so to load the new assets. Having a 30-second elevator ride is a little extreme. More realistically, we'd probably chop the world into a number of smaller pieces and then do some calculations with sight lines and run speeds like we did for Haven City when we were making Jack 2. The game is 20 years old, and not much has changed since then. All those twisty passages are there for a reason. There's a whole subset of level design dedicated to this sort of work, but still, it's a giant distraction for a team that just wants to make their game. So when I talked about the dream of an SSD, part of the reason for that 5 gigabyte a second target was to eliminate loads, but also part of the reason for that target was streaming. As in,
челы реально как будто в аудитории это картонные, короче, челы. Либо они тоже спят. Короче, все, что он пока рассказывает, охуенно быстрый SSD у них будет. Типа пиздец, он вообще все прогрузит. Он квартиру вашу прогрузит, вообще все текстуры прогрузит, вообще все прогрузит. Он так про это рассказывает, как будто типа вся вот эта презентация, и он сам, это как будто это все симуляция в плойке на самом деле.
Marvel's Spider-Man uses this strategy, and though it works very well for increasing the streaming speed, there's a massive duplication as a result. Some of the objects, like mailboxes or news racks, are on the hard drive 400 times. What I'm describing here are things that cramp a creative director's style. Either level design gets a little bit boring in places, or the data is duplicated so many times that it no longer fits on the Blu-ray disc. And you end up with hard limits on the player's run speed or driving speed. The player can't go faster than the load speed from the hard drive. And finally, I'm sure many of you have noticed that after a patch download, the PlayStation 4 will sometimes take a long time to install the patch. That's because when just part of a file has been changed, the new data can be downloaded pretty quickly. But before the game boots up, a brand new file has to be constructed that includes the changed portion. Otherwise, every change would add a seek or 2.
Ну, короче, эта презентация скорее не для нас, файвхедов, которые, типа, в своем познании настолько преисполнились. Это такое, типа, для разрабов всяких, все такое, типа, всякая супер вот эта вот техническая херня, вот это вот все.
There's yet one more benefit, which is that system memory can be used much more efficiently. On PlayStation 4, game data on the hard drive feels very distant and difficult to use. By the time you realize you need a piece of data, it's much too late to go out and load it. So system memory has to contain all of the data that could be used in the next 30 seconds or so of gameplay. That means a lot of the 8 gigabytes of system memory is idle. It's just waiting there to be potentially used. On PlayStation 5, though, the SSD is very close to being like more RAM. Typically, it's fast enough that when you realize you need a piece of data, you can just load it from the SSD and use it.
Он сейчас как будто возьмет вот эти SSD и будет ими просто обмазываться. Блять, у меня такой пиздатый SSD, он такой быстрый, пиздец. Типа, вам кажется, я им обмазываюсь, а он уже вообще на другую планету улетел, настолько он пиздец быстрый. Нет бы как мужик, бля, выйти такой и сказать: короче, у нас SSD пиздец огромный, как мой хуй, короче. И все, и показывает дизайн плойки, говорит, сколько она стоит, показывает игры, короче, какие-нибудь, раздает всем бесплатно плойку и уходит. Все, бам.
More game on the disk and more game on the SSD. And finally, those patch installs go away. The reality, though, is that is just one piece of the puzzle. There's a lot of places where bottlenecks can occur in between the SSD and the game code.
Типа, реально, вместо вот этого всего, что он рассказывает, все вот этой воды, лучше бы он просто примеры показал в сравнении, и все.
Да нет, у нас такие пиздец быстрые создаёт, твою мать.
Сейчас шишка встанет, чел.
It was that game loads and streaming would be 100 times faster. So every single potential bottleneck needed to be addressed.
Они шевелятся? В натуре?
Let's look at check-in and what happens when its overhead gets
100 times
larger. Conceptually, check-in is a pretty simple process. Data is loaded into system memory from the hard drive or SSD. It's examined. A few values are tweaked to check it in, and then it's moved to its final location. At the SSD speeds we're talking about, that last part, moving the data, meaning copying it from one location to another,
не, он меня реально
takes
пугает.
roughly an entire next-gen CPU.
Он как реально такой типичный убийца серийный, который не палится. Такой интеллигент. А потом к нему домой заходишь, и он тебя этим SSD до смерти забивает, короче, по башке. И складывает рядом с другими аниме-девочками в своем шкафу. На тебя похож, кстати. Окей, ясно, понятно, чел. Я вас понял.
Priority is very important. You can imagine the player heading into some new location in the world and the game requesting a few gigabytes of textures. And while those textures are being loaded, an enemy is shot and has to speak a few dying words. Having multiple priority levels lets the audio for those dying words get loaded immediately. On one side, that flash controller connects to the actual flash dies that supply the storage. To reach our bandwidth target of 5 gigabytes a second, we ended up with a 12-channel interface. 8 channels wouldn't be enough. The resulting bandwidth we've achieved is actually 5.5 gigabytes a second. With a 12-channel interface, the most natural size that emerges for an SSD is 825 gigabytes. The key question for us was, is that enough? I mean, it's tempting to add more, but Flash certainly doesn't come cheap, and we have a responsibility to our gaming audience to be cost-effective with regards to what we put in the console.
Мне показалось, он сказал, что у них 825 гигабайтов, короче, SSD.
We examined the specific games that they were playing over the course of a weekend or a week or a month, and whether that...
Ебать, я долбоёб, я перепутал SSD с ОЗУ.
Блять, почему конференция?
Я все это время думал, что он про оперативку, короче, говорит.
Так он после Microsoft решил Sony возглавить?
Я только сейчас понял, что такое
SSD. I'll go through the details in a moment. Back to the flash controller. On the other side, it connects to our main custom chip via 4 lanes of Gen 4 PCIe. and inside the main custom chip
Не,
is
ну
a
это вообще
pretty
все
hefty
переворачивает,
unit
кстати.
dedicated to I/O.
Это
Before
все
we talk
меняет.
about what that does, let's talk compression.
Так 825 гигабайт, это же нихера
PlayStation
немного
4
так.
used zlib as its compression format. We decided to use it again on PlayStation 5, but on my 2017 tour of developers, I learned about a new format called Kraken from Rad Game Tools. It's like zlib's smarter cousin. Simple, similar types of algorithms, but about 10% better compression, which is pretty big. That means 10% more game on the
Connect 3, baby.
or on the SSD. Kraken had only been out for a year, but it was already becoming a de facto industry standard.
Посмотрите Джорджа Bizarre Adventure, вы станете человеком.
So we hustled
А
and built
русский
a
на
custom
месте?
decompressor into the I/O
Да, я
unit,
русский.
one capable of handling over 5
Дизлайк.
Kraken format input data a
Отписка.
second. After decompression,
Connect
it
3,
typically becomes 8
boy.
or 9 gigabytes, but the unit itself is capable of outputting as much as 22
Он выглядит
gigabytes a
как
second
Дана
if the
Карми.
data happen to compress particularly well. By the way, in terms of performance, that custom
Ля, в натуре.
decompressor equates to 9 of our
Ебать.
Zen 2 cores. That's what it would take to decompress the Kraken stream with a conventional CPU. There's a lot more in the custom I/O unit, including a dedicated DMA controller. The game can direct exactly where it wants to send the data coming off of the SSD. This equates to another Zen 2 core or two in terms of its copy performance. Its primary purpose is to remove check-in as a
А это
bottleneck.
долго будет?
There's 2 dedicated I/O coprocessors and a large RAM pool.
А,
These
он уже
aren't
про...
Zen 2 cores. They're there principally
нет,
to
он не про
direct the
процессор
variety
говорит,
of
я думал
custom
про
hardware
процессор уже.
around them.
Мы все
One
еще
of the
SSD
coprocessors is
обсасываем.
dedicated to
На очереди
SSD.
оперативка,
This
потом
lets us
процессор,
bypass
видеокарта.
traditional
Это,
file
короче,
I/O
надолго,
as
чат. Мы
bottlenecks
здесь
for
надолго.
reading SSD. The
тебя
other
дождь?
is responsible for memory mapping, which I know
в
doesn't
натуре.
sound like anything related to the SSD, but a lot of developers map and remap memory as part of file I/O, and this too can become a bottleneck. There are coherency engines to assist the coprocessors. Coherency comes up a lot in places. Probably the biggest coherency issue is stale data in the GPU caches. Flushing all of the GPU caches whenever the SSD is read is an unattractive option. It could really hurt the GPU performance. So we've implemented a gentler way of doing things, where the coherency engines inform the GPU
Ты
of
мне
the
донат
overwritten
испортил,
address
пидор,
ranges,
я
and
его
custom
перепишу.
scrubbers in several
А
dozen
не тернит
GPU
лучше.
caches do
Почему
pinpoint
ебаную
predictions of
конференцию
just
Sony ведет ебаный Билл
The best
Гейтс?
thing is,
Он
as a
после
game developer, when you
Microsoft
read from
решил
the
Sony
SSD, you don't need
возглавить?
to know any of this. You don't even need to know that your data is compressed. You just indicate what data you'd like to read from your original uncompressed file and where you'd like to put it, and the whole process of loading it happens invisibly to you and at very high speed. Back to the dream. Thanks to all of that surrounding hardware, our 5.5 gigabytes a second really should translate into something like 100 times faster I/O than PS4 and allow the dream of no load screens and super fast streaming to become a reality. Having said that, expandability of our SSD is going to be quite important. Flash is costly, and you may very well want to add storage to whatever we put in the console. Now, the kind of storage you need depends on how you're going to use it. If you have an extensive PlayStation 4 library and you'd like to take advantage of backwards compatibility to play those games on PlayStation 5, then a large external hard drive is ideal. You can leave your games on the hard drive and play them directly from there, thus saving the pricier SSD storage for your PlayStation 5 titles, or you can copy your active PlayStation 4 titles to the SSD. If your purpose in adding more storage is to play PlayStation 5 titles, though, ideally you would add to your SSD storage. We will be supporting certain M2 SSDs. These are internal drives that you can get on the open market and install in a bay in the PlayStation 5. As for which ones we support and when, I'll get to that in a moment. They connect through the custom I/O unit just like our SSD does, so they can take full advantage of the decompression, I/O coprocessors, and all the other features I was talking about. Here's the catch, though. That commercial drive has to be at least as fast as ours. Games that rely on the speed of our SSD need to work flawlessly with any M2 drive. When I gave the Wired interview last year, I said that the PlayStation 5 SSD was faster than anything available on
А, он все еще про SSD
At the time,
рассказывает.
commercial M2 drives used PCIe 3.0
Наелся и
and
спит.
4 lanes of that cap out at 3.5 gigabytes a second. In other words, no PCIe 3.0 drive can hit the
Работай
required
стример,
spec.
где перевод. Короче, смотри,
M2
перевод такой на
drives with
протяжении
PCIe
уже
4.0 are now out in the market. We're getting
20
our
минут он
internet
рассказывает,
samples
насколько у них
receiving
пиздатый
4 or 5
SSD.
gigabytes
Он,
per
короче,
second from them.
поверь мне,
By
он
year's end, I
классный.
expect there will be drives that saturate
Вот,
4.0
примерно такой
and
перевод.
support 7
Он,
gigabytes.
короче, там поддерживает штуки
Having said
всякие,
that,
там, короче,
we
быстро
are
грузит он,
comparing
короче,
apples and
пиздатый,
oranges, because
большой,
that
как его
commercial
хуй.
M2 drive will have its own architecture, its own flash controller, and so on. For example, the NVMe specification lays out a priority scheme for requests that the M2 drives can use. And that scheme is pretty nice, but it only
Наелся
has
спит.
2 true priority levels. Our
Лучше бы
drives
ты вел
support
эту
6.
презентацию.
We
Я,
can
чат, я бы
hook
там
up
по
a
полочкам
drive
все
with only 2
разложил.
priority levels, definitely, but our custom I/O unit has to arbitrate
Спасибо,
the extra
приколист, за
priority,
50,
rather
Финчуган,
than the
спасибо за
M2
50,
drive's flash
Рейпчан,
controller.
спасибо
And
за
so the
50.
M2 drive needs a little extra speed to take care of issues
Поспал,
arising from the
выспался.
different approach.
Ну так, я на секунду
That
реально начал
commercial
засыпать,
drive also
короче.
needs to physically fit inside of the bay we created in PlayStation 5 for M2 drives. Unlike internal hard drives, there's unfortunately no standard for the height of an M2 drive. And some M2 drives have giant heat sinks. In
Мне
fact,
кажется,
some
где-то
of
уже
them even
слили
have
дизайн.
fans.
Типа обычно, когда такие
Right now,
презентации
we're
идут,
getting M2
до того,
drives
как они
samples
закончатся, уже все
Лёха,
слили.
benchmarking them in various ways.
И
When
пусть у вас
games
задержка.
hit beta, as they get
Я
ready for the
воскрес,
PlayStation
воистину
5
воскрес.
launch at year-end, we'll also be doing some compatibility testing to make sure that the
Спи дальше,
architecture of
верчам.
particular M2 drives isn't
Ладно.
too foreign for the games to handle. Once we've done that compatibility testing, we should be able to start letting you know which drives will physically fit and which drive samples have benchmarked appropriately high in our testing. It would be great if that happened by launch, but it's likely to be a bit past it. So please hold off on getting that M2 drive until you hear from us.
Ссылка
Okay,
удалена.
back to our
Ну как бы.
principles. Balancing evolution and revolution is the second of them. This was definitely
Подожди.
a recurring theme with the GPU.
Ну, блин, с другой стороны, неинтересно сейчас смотреть будет. Типа прикол же презентации, вот это вот ощущение, что типа и тебе показывают это такое, вау. А я посмотрю, короче, я вам не покажу. Чтобы у вас было такое ощущение. Чат, я о вас забочусь, короче, поняли? Да бля. Ой. Нет! Стой! А хотя ладно, мы все равно ничего не пропустим. Окей. Найс. Guys make speed 1.25 much better.
For what? Every time we double the performance of some GPU component, we don't want to find out we've doubled the power consumed and the heat produced.
Почему я, блядь, плачу тебе, чтобы пошутить самому? И так как я не особо умный, я сделаю это еще раз. Это ваша ебаная онлайн-лекция. Если даже не зря я отчислился.
Точно. Это та самая онлайн-лекция. Так, чел, так и устроен Twitch, типа стримеры, они не смешные, они просто пиздят шутки из чата смешных людей, ну типа. Twitch всегда был так устроен. Поэтому чем смешнее чат, тем смешнее как бы стример.
Before I get into the capabilities of the GPU, I'd like to make clear 2 points that can be quite confusing. First, we have a custom AMD GPU based on their RDNA 2.
Кукурузины вперед.
What does that mean? AMD is continuously improving and revising their tech. For RDNA 2, their goals were, roughly speaking, to reduce power consumption by re-architecting the GPU to put data close to where it's needed, to optimize the GPU for performance, and to add a new, more advanced feature set. But that feature set
Поставь на
is
X2,
malleable,
а оно не
which is
дает
to
здесь.
say that we have our own needs for PlayStation, and that, in fact,
Мы
is
сейчас
what
догоним,
we
типа,
wrote.
задержку.
Collaboration is born. If we bring concepts to AMD that are felt to be
И она
useful, then they can
остановится.
be adopted into RDNA 2 and used broadly, including in PC GPUs. If the ideas are sufficiently specific to what we're trying to accomplish, like the GPU cache scrubbers I was talking about, then they end up being just as friends. If you see a similar discrete GPU available as a PC card at roughly the same time as we release our console, that means our collaboration with AMD succeeded.
Или нет.
In producing technology useful in both worlds. It doesn't mean that we as Sony simply incorporated the PC part into
А,
the
в
console.
натуре? Так можно
This
весь
continuous
видос
improvement
посмотреть,
in technology
походу.
means it's dangerous to rely on turf.
А, вот, все.
Нахуй они эту лекцию по плойке проводят? Почему нельзя было шоу провести с лампами, дым-машинами, дабстепом и Дуэйн Джонсоном?
Ёпты, ебать, нахуй. В натуре. Вот чел. Бля. В натуре, ёпта. Чел, базаришь, ебать. Я про это же и говорю, ёпта. В натуре, ебать.
Прикинь, дизайн PS5 будет как SSD луль.
Я так твои видео смотрю на X2, а вот это вот обидно было. А вот сейчас вот не смешно было. Они засунули в PS3, PS2, короче, и это PS5. Ебать, PS3 плюс 3 плюс 2 равно... Ебать! Мой хуй! Они вообще все, короче, засунули туда внутрь. Quick math.
One advantage of this strategy is that once backwards compatibility is in the console, it's in. It's not as if a cost down will remove backwards compatibility like it did on PlayStation 3. Achieving this unification of functionality took years of efforts by AMD, as any roadmap advancement creates a potential divergence in logic. Running PS4 and PS4 titles at boosted frequencies has also added complexity. The boost is truly massive this time around, and some game code just can't handle it. Testing has to be done on a title-by-title basis.
Бля, вот прикиньте, ну типа вот там сейчас в этой комнате, вот эта презентация, она по сути для разрабов, типа для всяких реально файфхедов, которые сидят там, типа им эта информация, она им реально важная, она им поможет там в разработке игр. Все тому подобное.
Промотай до конца этой презентации. Хули ты сидишь томишь? Че у тебя голова такая маленькая? У тебя что, медленный SSD?
Чел. Чел. Короче, прикиньте, вот, типа там сидят реально файфхеды, для них эта информация важная. А прикиньте, если туда посадить таких долбоебов, как мы, ну типа как я и вы, как все вот эти люди, которые ЗЗЗ пишут в чате. Это так забавно было.
PlayStation 5 has a new unit called the Geometry Engine, which brings handling of triangles and other primitives under full programmatic control. As a game developer, you're free to ignore its existence and use the PlayStation 5 GPU as if it were no more capable than the PS4 GPU.
Назови стрим презик PS5. Вроде как ты мне писал, что типа я не смешной. Погоди, я сейчас перепроверю. More complex usage involves something called primitive. Ха-ха-ха-ха-ха-ха-ха. Смешной чат, умираю. Ха-ха-ха-ха-ха. И потом этот чел пишет: назови стрим презик PS5. И он настолько уверен в том, что это хорошая шутка была, что он написал это 2 раза. Addition of procedural detail to close-up objects and improvements to particle effects and other visual special effects. Another major new feature of our custom RDNA 2-based GPU is ray tracing, using the same strategy as AMD's upcoming PC GPUs. The CUs contain a new specialized unit called... Ебать, интелы соснули.
Лёха, вот дизайн PS5 100% отвечу. Ссылка удалена.
Ебать, интелы соснули. Пацаны, это кукурузин тайм. Вкладываемся все в AMD. Чат, это был не дизайн PS5. Ахаха, какой смешной чат, как же меня тут давно не было, но мне пора уходить.
Обдолбался и бредит.
The ray tracing instruction is pretty memory intensive, so it's a good mix with logic-heavy code. There's of course no need to use ray tracing. PS4 graphics engines will run just fine.
Короче, они преобразуют звук в картинку, потом в картинках есть тени, а в тенях есть отражение, и получается full ray tracing. Вот так вот он и работает, кстати. Это я вам типа в сжатом формате информацию сейчас выдал.
Люди в аудитории уже давно мертвы.
Having said that, adding ray-traced shadows and reflections to a traditional graphics engine could easily take hundreds of millions of rays a second, and full ray tracing could take billions. How far can we go?
Когда они засовывали в PS5 и PS4, он говорил про обратную совместимость с PS4.
Так это же давно известно было, что у них обратная совместимость будет. Все, что он сейчас рассказывает, это типа все давно было известно. То, что у них SSD будет, что все от AMD будет, что обратная совместимость будет. Единственное, что я новое услышал, пока что это вот он что-то там про звук рассказывал. Типа у них, они, короче, звук изобрели, у них в играх звук будет. Пока что это единственное новое. У меня SSD быстрый, я типа уже давно эту информацию обработал. О, за терафлопсы втирает, короче, погнали. Пацаны, дохуя терафлопсов будет. Никто не знает, что такое терафлопсы, но их, короче, будет много. Это как вот этот мем с мониторами, короче. Везде будут терафлопсы.
At 33% higher frequency, rasterization goes 33% faster. Processing the command buffer goes that much faster.
1 терафлопс мне и 2 терафлопса моему сыну.
Other caches have that much higher bandwidth, and so on. About the only downside is that system memory is 33% further away in terms of cycles. But the large number of benefits more than counterbalance that. As a friend of mine says, a rising tide lifts all boats. Also, it's easier to fully use 36 CUs in parallel than it is to fully use 48 CUs.
В Xbox уже 7 терафлопсов, они еще с 5 сидят.
Понял,
козел, тебя только что уделали. Сидит там, блядь, со своими 5 терафлопсами. SSD у тебя тоже, наверное, маленький, да? Козел.
Our process for setting CPU and GPU frequencies has relied on some heavy-duty guesswork with regards to how much electrical power games will consume and how much heat will be produced.
Короче, для плойки пятой нужно будет электричество.
Power consumption varies a lot from game to game. When I play God of War on my PS4 Pro, I know the power consumption is high just by the fan noise. But power isn't simply about engine quality. It's about the minutiae of what's being displayed and how. It's counterintuitive, but processing dense geometry typically consumes less power than processing simple geometry, which is, I suspect, why Horizon's map screen, with its low triangle count, makes my PS4 Pro heat up so much. Our process on previous consoles has been to try to guess what the maximum power consumption during the entire console lifetime might be, which is to say, the worst-case scene in the worst-case game, and prepare a cooling solution that we think
Зачем мне тачка? Как зачем? Она много терафлопсов вырабатывает.
If we get it wrong, the console will be quite loud for the higher power games, and there's even a chance that it
как он
might
про дизайн или видюху будет говорить. Так он про видюху говорил уже, она тоже от AMD будет.
PlayStation 5 is especially challenging because the CPU supports 256
PS5 будет стоить 5 терафлопсов и 1 топор. Ебать, погнали.
These are great here and there, but presumably only minimally used. Or are they? If we plan for major 256
Меня реально пугает его улыбка.
we need to set the
Он слишком позитивно рассказывает про терафлопсы.
Как
Как можно рассказывать настолько позитивно про то, что у него сильно шумит вентилятор, когда он играет в God of War? Когда я играю в God of War, мой вентилятор в PS4 раньше очень быстро крутился, и я понимал, что это значит, что потребляется много электроэнергии.
CUs are large. Each has 62% more transistors than the CUs we were using on PlayStation 4. So, if we compare transistor counts, 36 RDNA2 CUs equates to roughly 58 PlayStation 4 CUs. It is a fairly sizable GPU. Then we went with a variable frequency strategy for PlayStation 5, which is to say we continuously run the GPU and CPU in boost mode. We supply a generous amount of electrical power and then increase the frequency of GPU and CPU until they reach the capabilities of the system's cooling solution.
Короче, для плойки нужно будет электричество. Это типа 100% подтверждено.
And letting power vary based on the workload, we run at essentially constant power and let the frequency vary based on the workload.
По одной розетке за каждый терафлопс, короче.
Cost-effective and high-performance cooling solution designed for that specific power level. In some ways, it becomes a simpler problem because there are no more unknowns. There's no need to guess what power consumption the worst-case game might have. As for the details of the cooling solution, we're saving them for our teardown. I think you'll be quite happy with what the engineering team came up with. So, how fast can
Надо
we
было
run the
позвать
GPU
того
and
чувака
CPU
с
with this
презентацией
strategy? The
битконнектора.
simplest approach would be to look at the actual temperature of the silicon die and throttle the frequency on that basis. But that won't work. It fails to create a consistent PlayStation 5 experience. It wouldn't do to run a console slower simply because it was in a hot room. So rather than look at the actual temperature of the silicon die, we look at the activities that the GPU and CPU are performing and set the frequencies on that basis, which makes everything
Ебать, короче, ЦПУ идет в розетку, ГПУ идет в розетку, а потом, короче, ЦПУ и ГПУ соединяются и превращаются в огромного автобота, короче. И засовывают свой SSD тебе в задницу прям. И это типа новый VR. Поняли? Я Нерин, спасибо за 50. Блять, я сейчас подумал, короче, им донат пришел. Оно так появилось, типа у него анимация была как у доната, и типа вот этот текст внизу оранжевый, сверху белый. Типа на стримах, когда донат присылают, так же выглядит. 10 терафлопс! Наверное, это много.
But now we can run it as
еще один
high as
донат.
3.5 gigahertz. In fact, it spends most of its time at that frequency. That doesn't mean all games will be running at 2.23 gigahertz and 3.5 gigahertz. When that worst-case game arrives, it will run at a lower clock speed, but not too much lower. To reduce power by 10%, it only takes a couple of % reduction in frequency, so I'd expect any downclocking to be pretty minor. All things considered, the change to a variable frequency approach will show significant gains for PlayStation gamers. The final of our 3 principles was about finding new dreams. It's important for us on the hardware team to find new ways to expand or deepen gaming, and that's what led us to a focus on 3D audio. As players, we experience the game through the visuals, through audio, and through the feedback we receive from the controller, such as rumble or haptics. Personally, I feel a game is just dead without audio. Visuals are, of course, important, but the impact of audio is huge as well. At the same time, the audio team on a game project has to do a lot with a little. For example, on PlayStation 4, there's fierce competition for the Jaguar CPU cores. Audio typically ends up getting just a fraction of a core. That's not much of a computational resource, particularly when you consider that the visuals.
Не, они просто охуевают, они типа слышат что-то ушами, как будто они звук слышат, а это на самом деле типа вот эти челы из PlayStation, они изобрели звук. И они в ахуе.
Когда будет карантин и алкострим? Последние бабки на макароны. На тебя трачу.
Simple pipelined algorithms could really take advantage of asynchronous DMA and frequently reach 100% utilization.
Алкострима не будет, он напился и
There's
уснул.
unfortunately nothing comparable on PlayStation 4. Probably
По крайней мере, в ближайшее время. Ой, ну давай вот без этого, убери это. Убери это. Здесь не всем 18 есть.
And this provided a hint as to where we could go with audio, as well as some valuable experience. Not to oversimplify, but here were our goals for audio on PlayStation 5. The first goal was great audio for everyone, not just VR users or soundbar owners.
Я вам напомню на секундочку.
That meant audio had to be part of the console. It couldn't be a peripheral. The second goal was to support hundreds of sound sources. We didn't want developers to have to pick and choose what sounds would get 3D effects and which wouldn't. We wanted every sound in the game.
Про Great Audio сейчас рассказывает чел, ну типа у них дефолтный звук в плойке, который в коробке был, это вот это. Здесь нету второго наушника. Вот этот человек сейчас затирает про Great Audio. Ну, просто, чтобы вы сразу понимали. Я так охуел, когда эту коробку впервые открыл с плойкой, и типа, вот этот вот один маленький наушник увидел.
The concept of locality is simpler. It's just your sense of where the audio is coming from, to the right of you, behind you, above you. This can immerse you further in the game, and it can also directly enhance the gameplay. To use Dead Space as an example, I know, old school, you're fighting enemies in fairly dark, spooky locations. Back in the day, if you played the game using the TV speakers, you could tell that there was one last enemy growling and hunting you down, but it was difficult to tell quite where that enemy was. With headphones, you could tell that the enemy was somewhere on the right, which let you deduce, if you couldn't see it, that it must be somewhere behind and to your right. But with 3D audio with good locality, the idea is you know the enemy is precisely there, and you turn, and you take it out. So,
Разве не во
how
всех
do we
играх
know
сейчас это
where
есть?
sound is coming from in the first place?
Ну, то есть,
Well,
типа, когда я
all
вижу
those
противника, когда я его
bumps and
слышу, я
folds
понимаю
in the
примерно,
ear
где
have
он
a meaning,
находится.
evolutionarily speaking. Based on what direction the sound is coming from, sound waves bounce around inside the ear, there's some constructive and destructive interference, and the result is a change in volume. The phase of the sound also shifts, depending on what path the sound wave took to reach the ear canal. These volume changes and
Ну, типа,
phase
чат,
shifts are different
это
for each
изначально
direction and also
позиционировалось как
vary
такая,
depending on
типа,
the frequency
презентация
of the sound. Head size and head
техническая.
shape also
Поэтому
impact
здесь
the
много
sound
воды
in a
такой,
similar fashion.
которую
The way that the
нам
sound changes
файфхедам, такая
based on
информация не нужна.
direction and frequency can be
Это
encoded
типа
in
для
a
таких
table called the head-related transfer function, or
small IQ пацанов.
HRTF. Here's part of one. The vertical axis is the frequency. The horizontal axis is the direction, front, back, left, right, and the color gives the degree of attenuation of the sound at that frequency. The HRTF is as unique to an individual as a fingerprint is. In fact, you're looking at mine right now. Here's how we measure an HRTF.
Ебать,
We've
это чё
taken
такое?
hundreds of people through this process. We put a microphone in the subject's left and right ear canals, and then sit the subject down in the middle of an array of 22 speakers. We then play an audio sweep from each speaker
Он
as
на
we
хомячка в
rotate the
колесе похож.
subject. In the course of 10 or 20 minutes, we're able to sample the HRTF at over 1,000 locations. Using an HRTF when rendering audio creates unparalleled quality, but it's computationally expensive. The simplest way to use an HRTF is to process a sound source to make it
Но они,
appear
походу,
as if
реально
it's
над
coming
звуком
from one
за
of those
это
1,000 locations we sampled.
постарались, раз они так много про него
Unfortunately, the
рассказывают.
processing has to be done in
Видимо, что-то
frequency domain
интересное
rather
будет.
than time domain, so there's multiple fast Fourier transforms needed for every sound source, for every audio.
А на самом деле это, короче,
That's
стерео
a lot
будет.
of
Бам!
compromise. This computational complexity was the determining factor for our strategy. It meant we had to bite the bullet and design and build a custom hardware unit for 3D audio. Collectively, we're referring to the hardware unit and the proprietary algorithms we run on it as Tempest 3D.
Да, они на самом деле просто второй
The
маленький
meaning of
наушник добавили.
3D audio and technology should be pretty obvious here. As for Tempest, I feel it really reflects our goals with audio. It suggests a certain intensity of experience and also hints at your presence within it. We're calling the hardware unit that we built the Tempest engine. It's based on AMD's GPU technology. We modified a compute unit in such a way as to make it very close to the SPUs in PlayStation 3. Remember when I said that they were ideal for audio? So the Tempest engine has no caches, just like an SPU. All data access is via DMA, just like an SPU.
Ладно, короче, разбудите, когда
Our
что-нибудь
target
интересное
was that
будет.
it would have more power than a CPU, thanks to the parallelism that a GPU can achieve, and that it would be more efficient than our GPU, thanks to the SPU-like architecture. The goal being to make possible near 100% utilization of the CU's vector units. Where we ended up is a unit with roughly the same SIMD power and bandwidth as all
Лёха,
8 Jaguar
можешь,
cores in the
пожалуйста,
PlayStation
потише
4
разговаривать?
combined.
Я
If
тут
we were to use
пытаюсь
the
под
same
этот
algorithms as
осмыслить.
PSVR,
Обещай
that's
мне,
enough for
что
something
впредь
like
ты будешь себя
5,000
вести
sound
тише и
sources.
осторожнее.
But of course, we want to use more complex algorithms, and we don't need anything like that number of sounds. It would have been wonderful if a simpler strategy, such as using Dolby Atmos peripherals, could have achieved our goals, but we wanted 3D audio for all, not just those with licensed soundbars or the like. Also, we wanted many hundreds of sound sources, not just the 32 that Atmos supports. And finally, we wanted to be able to throw an overwhelming amount of processing power.
Наебал,
And it
наебал.
wasn't clear what any peripheral
Жабейт,
might have
жабейт.
inside of it. In fact, With the Tempest engine, we've even got enough power that we can allocate some to the games, to the extent that games
Конечно,
want
я
to
не
make
буду дуть
use
вам в
of
уши во время
convolution
презентации,
rework
которую вам
and
очень
other
интересно
algorithms that are
слушать.
either computationally
Вы ведь не хотели бы,
expensive
чтобы
or
какой-то
need
стример
high
здесь
bandwidth.
сидел и мешал вам
But the
слушать о том,
primary
типа,
purpose
что
of
этот
the
чел
Tempest
рассказывает,
engine
ведь это, ну,
remains
типа, прямой
3D
эфир, вы
audio.
здесь специально здесь собрались, потому
Now,
что хотели
3D
именно вот
audio
здесь
is a
послушать, о чем он
major
расскажет,
academic
чтобы,
research
типа,
topic.
я не
It's safe to
перебивал
say
его,
that
чтобы не
no one
рассказывал
in the
всякую
world
какую-нибудь
has all
свою
of the
чушь там,
answers.
потому что,
And the
типа, я
set of
вообще
algorithms that have
трихет
to
и
be
не
invented,
разбираюсь
tuned,
вообще ни
or
в чем.
implemented to realize our vision for 3D audio
Типа, вот это
is
вот все, да.
immense. For example, use of HRTFs in games is quite complex. Before, I talked about making a sound source appear as if it's coming from one of those 1,000 HRTF sample locations. But for high-quality 3D game audio, we have to handle other possibilities. The sound source might not be at one of the 1,000 HRTF sample
Он сказал, что
locations, so we
модуль
have
для
to
звука в
blend
PS5
the
мощнее
HRTF data
процессора
from the closest
и графики в
locations that we have
PS4,
set.
нихуя себе.
The sound source might be moving, which needs very special handling as that
Походу в
blend
натуре
keeps
второй
changing,
наушник добавит.
and that can cause phase artifacts in the resulting audio. Or the sound source might have a size to it, meaning it should feel as if it's coming from an area rather than a single point. There's also whole categories of approaches to be handled. 3D audio can be implemented using individual processing of 3D sound sources. But alternatively, ambisonics can be used for 3D audio. Ambisonics being somewhat like the spherical harmonics used in computer
Это
graphics.
что за бактерии?
And finally, there's
Блять,
audio
они нас
devices.
через монитор,
The
короче,
player might be
коронавирусом
using
пытались
headphones
заразить,
or TV
понятно.
speakers or have a higher-end surround
А
sound
чё вы
setup with
наушники-то
6
такие
or more
показываете?
speakers,
Вы покажите,
all of
которые
which
вы в
need
PS4
different
это
approaches.
ложили.
That's a lot of variations. It's nice to have
Чё
the
вы?
computational resources of the Tempest engine, but it's clear
Аудиодевайсы.
that
А где
achieving our
ваши-то
ultimate goals
аудиодевайсы,
with 3D
пацаны, вы
audio
чё?
is going to be a multi-year, step-by-step process. Having said that, headphone audio implementation is largely complete at this time.
Так
It was a natural
не-не-не,
place
это
for us
ваши
to start.
наушники,
With
но их
headphones,
докупать
we
надо за
control
5000, вы
exactly
другие
what each ear
покажите.
hears, and therefore the algorithmic development and implementation are more straightforward. For
Включи сабы,
TV speakers and
пожалуйста.
stereo
Я
speakers,
хоть
we're in the
Они
process of
автоматически.
implementing
Раз пошла
virtual
такая
surround sound.
пляска.
The idea
И
being
добрых
that if
снов.
you're sitting in a sweet spot in front of the TV, then the sound can be made to feel as if it's coming from any direction, even behind you. Virtual surround sound has a lot in common with 3D audio on headphones, but it's more complex because the left ear can hear the right speaker and vice versa. We have a basic implementation of virtual surround sound up and running. We're now looking at increasing the size of that sweet spot, which is to say, making the area you need to be in to feel the 3D effect larger. And we're also working to boost the sense
Предлагаю
of
забить
locality.
на эту хуйню и пойти
Headphone
в
audio is the
Там
current
новый
gold
перс
standard for
вышел.
3D audio
мне
on
щас шило на
PlayStation 5,
мыло,
but we're going to see what
предлагаешь
we can
поменять
do to
или
bring
чё?
virtual surround sound to
Я
a
лучше это
similar
3 часа
level,
буду смотреть,
after which
чем в Овер
we'll start
пойду
in
играть.
on setups with more speakers, such as 6-channel surround sound. It's now to the point where some of the PlayStation 5 games in development are extensively using these systems. One of the game demos allows you to toggle between conventional PlayStation 4-style stereo audio and our new 3D audio. I listened with just an ordinary pair of over-the-ear headphones, and wow, I could feel a difference. 3D audio has that dimensional feel to it. Conventional stereo audio feels smashed flat by comparison. The improvement is obvious. So, a big advancement,
Не, ну вот эта вот
but
тема
have
интересная.
I
Это реально, мне
entered the
кажется, всем
matrix?
будет
Does my
любопытно
brain
попробовать.
believe I'm really there? Like I
Вот
was
этот вот
talking about earlier when I
суперклассный звук.
explained our target of presence. Well, the answer is no, but you've probably caught on to what's missing here, namely whose HRTF was being used. It wasn't mine, it was the default HRTF. The
Но в таком
audio
случае
team
оно должно быть
analyzed
реально
the hundreds
пиздатым,
that they
чтобы ты
measured
прям
and chose the
послушал
one
такой
they felt
«Воу».
was the closest fit to the total game-playing audience. This shows a piece of the default HRTF on the left and my HRTF on the right. You can see that the general features are much the same, but the details are quite different. With the default HRTF, as I said, the 3D audio sounds pretty great. When I use my HRTF, though, the audio reaches a higher level of realism, which is to say that when using headphones and my HRTF, I occasionally get fooled and even think a sound is coming from the real world when it's actually coming from the game.
Ой, да
A
ладно.
corollary to this is that there are a few people whose HRTFs are sufficiently far from the default HRTF, that's the red dot here, that they can toggle between PS4 style and PS5 style audio and not sense much difference. I've had a few people describe the PlayStation 5's 3D audio as sounding like a bit better stereo audio. Presumably they're the ones at the very edges of this diagram. which means what HRTF you're using is key. I'd like everyone to be able to experience what I'm experiencing, but obviously it's not possible to measure the HRTF of every PlayStation user. That means HRTF selection and synthesis are going to be big topics going forward as the Tempest technology matures. At PlayStation 5 launch, we'll be offering a choice of 5 HRTFs. There's a simple test where you pick the one that gives you the best locality. That's just the first step, though. This is an open-ended research topic. Maybe you'll be sending us a photo of your ear, and we'll choose a neural network to pick the closest HRTF in our library. Maybe you'll be sending us a video of your ears and your head, and we'll make a 3D model of them and synthesize the HRTF. Maybe you'll play an audio game to tune your HRTF. We'll be subtly changing it as you play and home in on the HRTF that gives you the highest score, meaning that it matches you the best. This is a journey we'll all be taking together over the next few years. Ultimately, we're committing to enabling everyone to experience that next level of realism. Hopefully, I've been able to illustrate a bit about our design and decision-making process today and why PlayStation 5 has the feature set that it does. Now comes the fun part. We get to see how the development community takes advantage of that feature set. I'm hoping for the completely unexpected. Will it come from audio, ray tracing, the capabilities of the SSD, or something else? I guess we'll find out soon enough. Thank you for your time today.
Стоп, чё это? В смысле? Стой! Я за колой ходил.